Good morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. It's Greg Hauser from the city of Moncton. I have Joanne Duguay with me, who's involved in all programs, finance grants. Just
Hey,
giving up.
Greg. It looks like there's people waiting in the lobby. I don't know if we have to let people in. All I see is Joanne, you, and myself, and then people waiting.
Hello, all. It's Greg Hauser from the city of Moncton, and I have Joanne Duguay, who's in the cultural area and also involved in the grants, both involved in the grants. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just give it a minute for others to join in, and then we'll start the presentation. We'll pull up the PowerPoint. And just a reminder that this is being recorded, so it will be available online in the grants area. So anything that you missed, anything else that you would like to find out about, it can be accessed that way after the meeting. Right after this at 12:30, there'll also be a French version that Joanne will present. So at that point, if you're bilingual and wish to listen to that at the same time, all good. We can basically, you'll hear both, and both will be recorded. So as I said, I'll give it just another minute, and then we'll get started, pull up the presentation, go through. All right, let's get started. I'll pull up the presentation.
Unmute. What happened?
He's putting the presentation up.
You'll see the agenda here. It's basically introduction, 2 minutes, funding streams, multi-major grants, application completion, which is a key part of the presentation you want to do, and then and questions. One of the things I suggest, we may or may not have full time for questions, the full 8 minutes. So if there's questions that you have that aren't answered, please feel free to basically put a message on the chat, and we will get back to you. And we'll either go back directly to you, or we'll basically try to answer the best we can through the day here. So let's get started. As I said, once again, my name is Greg Hauser. Joanne Duguay is with me, and welcome to all the organizations that have joined us in anticipation with the community grant program that we have here at the City of Moncton. So first, the funding streams, quickly explained. On the funding streams, we have culture stream, which is for cultural organizations. We'll talk a little more about that in a separate slide. So those are individual annual grants under $10,000. Immigration, once again, smaller grants, 1-year grants under $10,000. And quality of life is, again, 1-year grants under $10,000. And each of these we'll talk a little more in the next upcoming slides. We'll basically also then talk about major multi-year, basically up to 3-year grants and over $10,000 requests. Basically, as a note, all grants are subject to availability of funds and basically recommended to council on an annual basis. Keep in mind that there is limited funding available, and the amount of grant budget determined is within the total municipal budget by the City of Moncton. So it's not unlimited. It's not by any means the number of applicants we have. We try to fund as much as possible. Each year, I can tell you that basically the requests far exceed the available money the city has, but we do our best to help as many organizations as possible. Not every application is guaranteed funding either. It's based on merit, relevancy, and the major multi-year, as I talk later, is also reviewed by a third-party committee. The other thing, if the amount awarded may be less than requested just because of available funding. And finally, we don't fund 100% of a program or an ask. So if there's someone says, I have a $3,000 project, the city wouldn't fund the whole thing. We'd be looking for another partner, several partners that the organization has to help with that project. So we're not the sole financer of any single one project. So eligibility criteria, basically key eligibility criteria is simply nonprofit organizations. It's in the policy. There's many stipulations about that is. Certainly not eligible would be government, for-profit organizations or religious affiliated groups. Basically, the other ones not eligible, if there's existing multi-year major multi-year recipients that are already receiving money in 2026. So if you're a major multi-year recipient of funds that will receive money in 2026, you can't apply in 2026. You'd have to wait until your 3-year term, if that's what it is, ends. Important, one grant stream per organization. So you can apply for culture, you can apply for immigration, quality life, or major multi-year, but just one of those. The other thing, services must be provided within the city limits, within the city of Moncton. So basically, we're looking for services to assist those residents within Moncton specifically. Talking about culture grants, the purpose of the grant is to support the creation and presentation of cultural and artistic merits, projects of merit. It ties back to the 2016-2026 cultural plan. And there's a link in this presentation when it gets posted. There's a link there for City of Moncton Cultural Plan 2026. It's a PDF. And basically, the outlines of the plan and the purpose of these grants is on page 24 to 32. Basically, in essence, it's really support or at least one of the action of the cultural plan and really access more cultural activities, encourage more use of public space for cultural purposes. That's really a key purpose of the cultural grants. Eligibility criteria and expenses. Examples of eligible expenses for culture could be artist fees, venue rental, equipment, promotion for your events. Things that wouldn't be eligible would be basically bursaries, food and catering, that sort of thing. So that's not the purpose of the grant. It's really to help support the event, support your organization. Evaluation considerations. So basically, and with the application that gets submitted, how the evaluation looks upon relevancy and feasibility of the project or the operation, and as it fits in and is relevant to the cultural plan, and then the plans within and desires of that cultural plan. The next section of the grant is the immigration grants. The purpose of this grant is to provide funding to organizations that provide services that assist furthering priorities in the Greater Moncton immigration strategy. The maximum amount is $10,000, so all intents and purposes less than 10. We'll see requests of 3,000, 2,000, 1,500 for a variety of areas for smaller amounts to help support specific items. The objectives for that grant is really to attract immigrant talent to our labor market, ensuring that newcomers put down roots, and broadening the community collaboration mobilization. So that's really what these grants are trying to help with, is to assist organizations with these objectives. Basically, the eligibility criteria and eligible expenses are similar to others. Really, the focus on the grant is really to support initiatives for newcomers, how they basically will help fund newcomers in the sense of the programs they're in, and keep newcomers within the city of Moncton. Basic things that aren't eligible that would ideally, as an example, be more cultural, is things like artistic and cultural events. We've had applications in the past where, through the immigration, they're asking for cultural and artistic events. That would be more an application you want to put through the cultural program. Basically, the other things that aren't eligible is duplication of services. that the city of Moncton or other organizations say that the province, the feds are providing. If that service already been provided, we wouldn't consider a grant for that purpose. So that's basically a summary of the immigration grants. The third, let's call it less than $10,000 amount, the smaller annual grants, is basically the quality of life grants. The purpose is to enhance the quality of life and well-being for Moncton residents through funding nonprofit groups as it relates to recreation, active living, social inclusion. It ties back to the strategic plan of 2025, and it really focusing on recreation, active living, and social inclusion in areas such as diversity, equity, inclusion, and social support for programs to assist, various residents and organizations within the city of Moncton. The main goals really is to provide, those who are applying, to provide the greatest benefit to those residents of Moncton, the broadest touch you can have. Program or project feasibility must be demonstrated as a feasible project, that it's got good support and organization capacity in order to, complete the project, complete the program must be demonstrated. The largest fund available and basically is the major multi-year. This provides funding of $10,000 or above and for multiple years. So you could have a project, maybe you're saying I need $20,000 just once per project, or it could be up to a 3-year cycle of funding. And it gives organizations stability of a multi-year commitment. So it could be, $10,000 for 3 years, which therefore the organization can help plan and budget accordingly for their operations and things that they're looking at doing. Important factor, in order to apply for major multi-year grants, you must have previously received funding for 3 of the last 5 years in the other programs. Basically, the reason for this is we want to ensure there's stability, organization, history in the grant program within the city, so that the organization, the city and administration have been dealing with these organizations. So once again, if 3 of the last 5 years you've been receiving a culture grant or a quality of life grant or basically a immigration grant, then you have the ability to apply for major multi-year because of the history of development and that sort of thing. So that's basically an important factor. So if you haven't applied to the City of Moncton before, recommend going through one of the other streams first, and then basically work with the city to develop that history and that working relationship. Basically, on the grants, it's evaluated by the Grant Evaluation Committee. There's a scoring criteria used aligned to the city strategic plan pillars. The scoring matrix is posted on the website with the application, how they score it. It considers financial need and sustainability, considers applicant partnerships, which we'll talk about in a minute, and looks at overall value to the city. I'd like to talk a little bit of the grant application because it's an important facet here that we need to look at. All the forms, information, resources are on moncton.ca/grants, so you'll be able to see it in those areas. The form streamlined for consistency and improved user experience. Every year we continue to try to augment to adapt it, so it makes it easier for applicants to apply. The application for the major multi-year, because of the more dollars and more commitment over a period of time, is more detailed than the other streams. A couple notes on this, and bring it up again later. Organizations will require a new account each year. So as you go in, you'll be asked to set up an account with a password. Also, something that's very helpful as you're completing the application, try to use a generic email address. So like info at your organization or something like that, because if you put a person's name at your organization and that person happens to leave or is no longer with the organization, and the city tries to send out, or we try to send out information, of update information or reach out for information, email isn't working, that makes it very difficult. So basically, and the other download copy and paste, and then copy it back online. So it also, by downloading that Word document that you can do, it allows you for backup, so you have backup, so you know what you submitted. You will receive an email though, when you submit, finally do a submission, you'll receive an email back saying submission received. A little more details now about the grant application itself. It's divided into sections. And we've tried to make it intuitive as we go and try to make the information flow from high level detail to a little more information. So section 1 of the application form, and we're not going to say pull it up on screen, but for those who had access to it and may have it available, basically section 1 details about the required documentation, past funding, what's your district for the funding, you choose a funding stream. So at that point, that's where you choose between a cultural, immigration, quality of life, or major multi-year, and that will lead you to the specifics of that stream. The eligible criteria, it talks about who's eligible to apply on the front end, and as we mentioned earlier, no government, for-profit, or religious affiliated groups. And once again, keep in mind, an organization can only apply to one stream. Section 2, organizational information. Basically, here's where we put organizational contact info, and I repeat again, please use an info at or something at your organization, not the name of a person. Try to keep it generic. You want to call it, customer service at or info at, something like that. That would be helpful. In here, the details about the organization are placed, such as sector, statistics about the organization, existence, how long you've been in existence, a little bit of history, mission, visions, and goals. So what's the mission, vision, and goals of the organization as it's evolved through its time? And another important part that gets stored is partnerships. So what we're looking on partnerships is most significant. So ideally, the top 5 may or may not be in a financials form, but who are the top 5? Maybe you have a collaboration with organization B, organization C. Basically, we're looking for who those partnerships are, who you're leveraging your efforts with their efforts to give the biggest bang for the buck for those residents, city of Moncton. We're not looking for who you get your office supplies from or who you do normal day-to-day work from. It's really about those who are supporting your programs together, that you're working together to make things better for all citizens and residents of Moncton. Section 3 is funding requests. So what's the purpose of the grant? So, what are you asking for? Why are you asking for the money? A strategic plan and program info. So description of the project, program, and impact on the community. So what's this project going to do? How many people is it going to impact? What's the length of time you think it'll take? All those sorts of things. And if an organization doesn't have a formal strategic plan, then please share either action plans or goals or something like that. Most organizations, once they become a certain size, will develop a strategic plan. But in evolution, perhaps in the smaller grants, it's more about what's the action plans and goals that the group has as they move forward. The 4 sections, projected outcomes, is extremely important and something we put in the application over the last number of years. What we're looking for is provide projected outcomes and expectations that you're going to obtain with the use of the funding. So provide 3 to 5 projected outcomes. We'll show you a couple options. Right, so ideas here, but there's many more. The reason we want these in the application is in the reporting at the end of each year that we'll be looking for the organization to provide. You'll report on these outcomes in the annual reports. So really these outcomes are basically how would you measure success? How do you achieve your objectives? I mean, you could call them KPIs, key performance indicators. Those are sorts of things that we're looking for. What would you indicate would be measures of success for your organization? That's what we're looking for in projected outcomes. And through the reporting process, we'll ask for how did you do? Some sample outcomes would be basically the total number of clients obtaining safe and stable housing, total number of newcomers, international students, total number of visitors, total number of participants, basically total increase. And we're looking, ideally, this is more data related, but the outcomes at the end of the year, testimonials are great. The testimonials of people who you impacted or other organizations that you impacted, how they benefited from your services It's really about the impact of the organization and program on the community. Alignment to strategic pillars. So basically, we're looking for alignment to the strategic pillars that council develops. Provide details on how each pillar is being addressed. So pillars in this case are economy, which includes immigration, culture and recreation, environment, safety and security. So those 4 pillars are listed, and you can access them from the application, you can access the strategic plan, and look at hitting those. And once again, sometimes environment is okay. Well, we have basically green, white, blue recycling. Not necessarily what we're looking for. We're looking for what the impact on the environment is that your organization is doing. Same with economy, same with culture. You may not hit all pillars, just the way each organization is set up and what their direction is. But do your best to identify clear details on how each pillar is addressed. End of the year reporting. So basically at the end of each year, in December of each year, we're looking for reporting on how the outcomes were against those you projected on this application. There'll be a requirement for financial information, and failure to submit a report at the end of the year will incur withholding of payment. So for instance, if you had applied and receiving grant in 2025 and you don't submit a report at the end of 2025 in December, and you're successful candidate for 2026 grants, if you don't submit a report at the end of the year, you won't get payment until you submit that report. Because it's important for us to be able to report back to council and also other citizens as to the impact of the monies that are being given. And so that's why the reports are important to provide. That date is for reporting is the middle of December, and that will be announced on the website. So a few final tips, application tips, and we'll open up for questions. Don't wait till the last minute. Always never fails. There's always our deadline, September 29th. But if you wait till the last minute, you have problems, internet problems, accessible problems, basically it makes it very difficult. If email address, don't use personal use, like I said. If you want to ask for help, please reach out to grants@moncton.ca. I mentioned before, use the MS Word and copy and paste it. And each year there's a new login and password. Basically, on the attachments, there's attachments required. So basically, projected revenues and expenses are required. Financial statements from a third party, a major multi-year, and for others, it'd be internal or a third-party statement. And I highlight that incomplete documents where all the attachments aren't there, where it's not filled in properly, it does basically affect the application. It means sometimes have to reach out to the applicants, and/or if we don't get the information, often that application is not put through for further consideration. So finally, the grant dates, deadline to apply is September 29th. Through that time, from October 1st to November 30th is the evaluation of the grants. Budget deliberations on November 4th to 6th. That's simply where the pot of money is available before the grant applications are finalized and review is finalized. That gives us the money. Communication to council is when the successful candidates on the grant applications are brought forth to council. And then basically December 12th is when that form I mentioned for ones who receive money in 2025, and each year is the same thing. And communicate after council. We go to council in December. The successful organizations will be communicated with arranging for payment early in the new year, and that sort of how that would work. So basically, I think I'll stop sharing now, and we'll open up the questions. We have basically about 5 minutes for questions. So if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. We'll try to get to you, and bear with. And if we don't get you in the next couple of minutes, please leave it on chat or feel free to email grants@moncton.ca, and we'll be glad to help you out. So
I added the email address has been added to the chat. One little thing I just wanted to add was that if you submit an application to one stream, it is possible that when the administration and the evaluating committee, they could determine that it might be a better fit under another stream to make sure that it's most successful. So that may be something that happens, but we will keep everyone aware of that if we do that.
Okay, I see, I'm just from what we see, there's 3 questions so far, so we'll try to get those ones. I'll go by the name that's on the screen, so Karis. Question.
Hi. Yes, I was wondering, is it open now to apply for the grant for 2026, 2027?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank
Unless,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Komal, by the name, yes, please go ahead.
Hi. First, thank you so much for hosting the webinar to inform us about the grants. I actually have 3 very quick questions. So the first one, I want to follow up. If we have already applied for the multi-year grant and we are receiving multi-year grants, so we won't be eligible for the cultural and the immigration grants, right?
That is correct, yeah, if you're receiving something, again, and so if you say you started in 25, so you'd receive 25, 26, 27, you will only be able to apply after the end of that cycle.
Okay. And every year for multi-year grants, we have to report every year on December, like in December, on December 12th?
Even as multi-year, it's a slightly different submission, but it gets posted. And we'll send out a message to all of the groups, usually in the fall, usually in October, that the reporting process is open, and we've upgraded in the last year. So that will help to.
I'm sorry, your voice was cutting off. Can you please repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So basically, we'll, even if you're major multi-year, you do need to report every year. It's a different format. But basically, yeah, either the annual or the major multi-year, each year you have to report.
Okay. And is September the deadline for all kinds of grants every year? I mean, we will be applying for another grant probably in 27. So is September usually the month where all applications deadline falls in?
On these community grants being the major multi-year, cultural immigration, and quality of life, they are. It's September 29th. And we did that because we want to try to get as close to year end for people having information what their next year's budget's about, things like that. There are other grants in the city, such as basically heritage grants, the different process. Idea, but this is really the community grants for this type of thing.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all I have.
Oh, perfect. Okay, Peter, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for attending, everybody, by the way, too.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. Sorry if I missed this. I'm curious if you could clarify about the adjudication process, if it's done by jury, by standing committee, by administration, some combination of all of that, or something else?
Okay, so for the major multi-year grants, it's done by a committee made up of third parties, so basically residents of the city of Moncton. There's 4 individuals, 2 counselors, and 3 administrative. So it's basically a third party committee that looks at it with the score matrix that's in the applicant. It was in the website. On the other ones, the cultural cultural immigration, quality of life, they're basically looked at by administration, but also reviewed by that group for consistency. But the larger ones are definitely worked on by a third party committee that adds very much significant objectivity to the process. Perfect. Okay. Sharon, you had your hand up.
Yeah, my question is, so the successful applicant for the 2026 grant will be notified, you're saying maybe in December, late in December?
Usually we do our best to get it out to sometime around the 15th, between the 15th and the Christmas holidays.
Okay.
Once we've gone to council, that's usually the first week of December. Once we get that, we'll circle out and issue letters, and that's where sometimes the email is very important, because we'll issue those letters via the email.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks. Perfect. Okay, one last question, Gary, and then we have to jump on to the French one. Oh, you're on mute, Gary. Oh. And Gary, I hate to cut us off, but if you can put it in chat or send an email, we do have to jump off for the French one. Feel free to join in that one or anything else you'd like. If you go to grants@moncton.ca, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, send us an email, we can give you a call back.
Excuse me. How do I send an email? For the chat. Yeah, well, I was trying to talk, but I didn't see that I had to turn the mic on up here.
So it's over?
Ran out of time, yeah.
So who's this guy?
No, I don't know.
Okay, just close it.
Close what?
Close the meeting.
This?